אשא עיניי אל ההרים, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, מאין יבוא עזרי. Is there sorrow greater than this? Where is our consolation? Death has taken Lori from us, but our presence, the gifts of the goodness she gave to us throughout her life, they remain with us. Let our silence reach out to her bereaved family. Let their tears fall upon us. Let their anger break against us. But let our love and our deeds, as a community of shared meaning and purpose, speak for us. In the presence of boundless grief, the poet said, Ein ot tefillah b'savatai. There is no longer a prayer on my lips. And yet, today, we gather to pray to the source of life and ask for comfort and fortitude. We weep because we can do no other. Oh God, be now with the stricken family of Lori Weinstein. Help them draw near to one another in their need for love and strength, and teach us to place our arms about them and sorrow with them. Let us be with these mourners in their grief until hope breaks through like a bud in a dark corner of earth. The poet Merritt Malloy writes, when I die, give what's left of me away to my children and to those who wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. When you need me, put your arms around anyone and give to them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known and loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live on in your eyes and not in your mind. For love doesn't die, but people do. And so when all that's left of me is love, give me away. Amen. I invite you to join with me, if you wish, in the recitation of the 23rd Psalm. We say, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Ata imadi, thou art with me. That faith of the psalmist is echoed today in the feelings I know are so present for Lori's bereaved family. Ata imadi, you are with them. And for this, there is abundant gratitude. I've been asked to remind you that at the conclusion of our service today here at Berkowitz-Kumin, we will continue on to a service of interment at Beit Olam Cemetery. Family will then receive friends at their residence at 2417 Allen Boulevard in Beechwood. They'll continue with Shiva observances this afternoon until 5 p.m. Monday and Tuesday, also at the home from 12 to 3 p.m. and 6 to 9 p.m. And they invite you to read carefully in the death notice in the paper so that you might, if you wish, to pay tribute to her life, share a gift of tzedakah to the charity that they have chosen in remembrance of her. You're, of course, invited to offer continued memories, gestures of condolence and love over the days and weeks to come. In recent days, since beginning to prepare for this service with Lori's loving family, I couldn't get out of my head a portion of a poem by Mary Oliver called In Blackwater Woods. The conclusion of the poem reads, "Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads me back to this. The fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, its meaning is something none of us will ever know. But to live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes, to let it go. To let it go." I share these words of love and release quite reluctantly. And why? Because none of us truly wants to be here. Let the record reflect we are here today against our will. None of us wants to find words to confront the black river of loss which flooded over and took Lori from us. We rage at the death of a friend and precious member of this community. If only it would help, we would howl at the moon at the necessity today to sum up the total of her deeds. It's just not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be over. We wanted her to have more time to love, to give, and to hold the people in her life close against her. We mourn here today with David, and our hearts ache with his. To have for 25 years a marriage of such affection and support, to know love again in Lori's arms, to see her live each day, every day, but especially since that first diagnosis of cancer many years back, with the premise that she lived that each day was a gift, each day a source of great light for her and for him. We pray that light extends to this darkened afternoon. But David also feels so blessed by the way in which Lori lived. Her embrace of his son Mark, his Vanessa, and of course, Lori and David's granddaughter, Mary Lynn. David is proud of the strength of Lori's relationship with his sister Linda and her Bob. David is also desperately trying today to hold on to better times. He'll speak to us about them in a few moments. Times of laughing with her, holding her close, sharing with her both the tasks and the burdens of living and working, parenting and grandparenting. This has been one of the great privileges of David's life. And we come here today, David, to remind you that there is more than a river of loss before you. With our presence today, we want you to know what's behind you. The whole reservoir of loving kindness that you and Lori have poured into your friendships and bonds in community. We grieve here today for one who was both a kid sister and a big sister, with her siblings, Karen and Sue. They and their husbands, Stuart and Bob, have each been hoping against hope that there would be more time for Lori. She set such a powerful example to them, to each of them, not just of the grit and tenacity to fight for her life, not just against disease, but for the chance to make her life one of substance and meaning, and also the capability that we all knew of Lori, who did not take herself too seriously. A sister who was willing to make a fool of herself singing silly family songs as a tradition, and to remember their childhood in Connecticut with affection and joy. But the truth is that there is not one of us here today who did not come to this place to communicate in one way or another what Lori had told us every single day. since July 16th of 1994. And that was that she loved being Daniel's mother. You should only know, Daniel, that the people she encountered at work and others she encountered on the many volunteer boards she served, the schools you attended, including those in our Fairmount Temple community that we share, they knew from your mom's lips what she also told you, which is just how proud she is of you. She felt it was such a gift to be your mom, not just when you were a young man, but today as the man you are. You two held a special bond, and you know it. She could nudge you and get right underneath your skin. And she wasn't afraid to tell you what she thought was best for you. My friends, I want you to know that Daniel sat with me in my office yesterday at Fairmount Temple and with great clarity praised a mom who he said never ever took a back seat in life. Daniel acknowledged that though disease had weakened his mom, there she was all the time for him, not slowing down, not easing up. She was a force of nature. And we pray, Daniel, that her memories will continue to inspire you. Lori was born on October 29th, 1957 in Connecticut, the middle child of Jerry, a hardworking CPA, and the breadwinner for their family, and Rhea, who both tended to the busy lives of each of their three daughters, and as Lori, Karen, and Sue readily described, wore the pants in the family, setting the tone of what was hoped for and expected from each of the daughters. Karen and Sue conveyed to me that their sister growing up was the same person we knew, that she had higher expectations even for herself. It seems that her entire and too narrow lifespan she would be known as a person of determination and principle, a source of optimism to be sure, but one who actively sought throughout her life to realize her dreams of better days, not just by dreaming them, but by working really hard to assure them. Their days of childhood included a strong Jewish upbringing at Congregation B'nai Jacob in Woodbridge, Connecticut. Many memories of playing and, in some cases, fiercely competing with their sister, who, let's just say, liked to win the game, spike the ball, and smack talk against whomever she was playing. They remembered today how much a part of their lives was Camp Hiawatha in Maine, how Lori participated at every level and loved her summers away at camp. But that did not alter the fact that Lori built strong and protective and loving relationships with her sisters and with each of her parents, commitments to hold on to the traditions and values they had made in their lives until she breathed her last just this week. Sue will always think of her sister as one who radiated hope and who did not complain, and if she held regrets, held them close to her vest. Karen told me how she marveled at her sister Lori's ability to truly relate to other people at the various junctures in their lives. This was true of relationships she made going back to Amityville High School and later to studies in bio and chemistry at Skidmore. Upon college graduation, Lori's life path took her next to a position at Mass General Hospital in Boston, where she worked in the lab of Dr. Dennis Landis, who mentored her and guided her in these earliest years of her career. Well, thank goodness Dr. Landis took a position later here at the Cleveland Clinic, because it was his having recruited such a talented and intelligent staff member to join his research team that brought her into Cleveland. Here, her career morphed from research into marketing, and like many things that Lori set her mind to doing, she simply learned a new skill set quickly and built a reputation upon it, building on her passion for the healthcare industry and helping people during difficult times. Lori studied for and received an MBA in marketing here at Case. And just about the time she met David, she had begun her first job of any length at Avery Dennison, where she worked for several years. When she became a key marketing executive later at the Cleveland Clinic, and later the CEO of the Diabetes Partnership of Cleveland. There are people from all stages of her substantive career who've been reaching out, and many of whom are present with us today, to share respect for this colleague who impressed them, not just with her work, but with her zest for life. Lori was assertive and curious about others. She wanted not just to build a life and a home that she could be generous from to support others. She wanted to know all the days of her life that she had built deep friendships and was loyal to a fault to all of them. In the year 1992, it seems our Jewish Community Center in Cleveland had established the somewhat risky idea of building a dating group to help Jewish couples form, and with the hopes they might find love and raise families together. Apparently it was through that network that Lori met David, and they spent their first date not far from here at Nighttown. It went, and this is David's term, okay. Which may sound like he was being playful, but he really means it. The first date went just okay. He didn't think they were about to go out for a second one. But Lori gave him a phone call because she thought otherwise. She agreed that the first date was no great source of inspiration. But she told him that there was reason to try again. Maybe if we try harder, she seemed to suggest, we'll find out whether there's a spark. And like many things over the course of the last 27 years, much to Lori's credit, she was right. Theirs was and remains an example of a couple of true companionship to one another. David found in her a woman who brought vibrancy and hope and passion in his life. He marveled at the goodness she gave away generously to others, perhaps as if she knew that time would be short in life and you'd better establish for yourself a reputation for living and giving to others. And she found in him a champion for her dreams, a man who'd put up with her proclivities and her routines and the big messes all over their house with patience. She knew when she met him that he was already a good father. She saw in David a man with whom to build a family of her own, and she believed greatly in him as a source of love for her and Daniel, but also a man who would love being a parent all the days of his life. All of us at Fairmount Temple have been struggling with, thinking about, and remembering much better times with Lori in recent weeks. Rabbi Caruso, who officiated at Daniel's bar mitzvah, spoke to me of the smile that was so aglow on that day. My colleague cantor Sarah Sager, with whom Lori had recently confided both her fears and her highest aspirations only weeks ago, could not be here today in time to participate in the service as she travels back from out of town. She asked that I not only convey her regrets, but some words that she wrote to express her endearment to Lori and David. She wrote as follows: I have greatly valued my relationship with Lori. No matter how often or less often I saw her, I admired her and greatly appreciated our relationship. We connected originally as working women and mothers, Cantor Sager wrote. She was smart, insightful, profoundly caring, and always sought to support, empower, encourage, protect, and help both Daniel and David. As able and accomplished as she was professionally, her focus was always her family, their needs and well-being. Her mind never stopped thinking about new ways to help solve a difficulty, creatively problem solve, try a new approach or a new strategy. She did this at work, and she did it at home. She did it in her relationships, and she did it when she faced illness. I'm quite certain that most everyone who knew her will speak of her as a fighter, and that's because she was. But she not only fought with her strength, which was prodigious, but she fought with her intelligence, her heart and spirit. This was what made the difference. It was also what made her so special, what drew us to her, and what made us somewhat take charge nature of her as simultaneously vulnerable and deeply human. She was usually right about things, which would have been absolutely maddening, except that it was tempered by her obvious care and concern to maximize the well-being for others. At her core, she was selfless. No pride of ownership or egotism. On the contrary, if she could help and make the difference in someone else's life, that's all that mattered to her. But Cantor says Lori was not afraid to ask for help. I will never forget when her mother passed away and she knew that she needed the wisdom and guidance of her Jewish faith. She seemed comforted by our exchange about our traditions, beliefs, and practices. I always loved to see her at temple, sitting with David. She was devoted to synagogue and to Judaism. And Cantor says when they spoke in the aftermath of the most recent but devastating diagnosis, as she had done with every challenge in her life, she approached it with honesty, clarity, focus, a plan of action, and concern for her loved ones. She was, I told you, Daniel, exceedingly proud of you, of your sports writing and interest, your work at the J, and your passions and interests, your talents and abilities, your strength and your resilience. She acknowledged that David was her true guardian angel who watched over her, took care of her, protected her, and comforted her with Herculean strength, care, compassion, and love. David was at her side until her body, but not her spirit, could endure no longer. That's quite a life. A good example. And so, my friends, I say to you, this is a life we can learn from. Let's commit to do so. Our friend Lori pushed back against a disease that could have taken her many years ago. And not so that in our grief we'd give up hope. Her life, her whole life, is a kind of testimony to me of the words of our prayer book. That no matter what our mortality teaches us, we shall not despair. We do not despair. For we are more than a memory slowly fading into darkness. With our lives, with her life, she gave life. And so may she move continually in the eternal cycle of darkness, death, light, and life. And may we learn from her. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May we fulfill God's will. Amen. I'm now happy to call on David to share some memories and tributes to his beloved.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Lori battled this hideous disease that we called cancer for 22 years. In the end, as it almost always does, it won. But along the way, she fought with courage, stubbornness, and resolve, always believing that in the end, she would prevail. She endured multiple chemotherapies, radiation, immunotherapy, all with the attendant and sometimes painful side effects. At the end, not only was her body ravaged by this horrible disease, but it robbed her of her spirit. But that's not the way I'm going to remember her. I'm going to remember her as a devoted and loving wife and mother to Daniel. I'm going to remember her as a generous, both financially and of spirit, and how she wanted to always see the good in people, not the bad. I'm going to remember all of the people she touched with kindness and warmth. I'm going to remember how devoted and fiercely loyal she was to her family, and when her parents became ill, how she did everything from afar to help take care of them. And then even after she became ill, she never complained and never wanted to burden them with her illness. I'm going to remember her love of sports and the many enjoyable nights we spent at Progressive Field in the queue watching the Indians and the Cavs, and the not so enjoyable times we spent at First Energy Stadium watching the Browns. Lori and I agreed that the only way the Browns were ever going to get better was if I gave up my season tickets. And I did, and they will. I remember the person who saw every episode, sometimes multiple times, of Blue Bloods and Say Yes to the Dress, and how we enjoyed watching our favorite soap opera together, The Young and the Restless. I remember the person who embraced my son Mark and our daughter-in-law Vanessa, and whose eyes lit up and smiled broadly whenever we saw our granddaughter Mary Lynn. I remember the person who, when we met with Cantor Sager, and Lori was asked what she was most afraid of, she said she didn't want to leave Daniel and me alone. But Cantor Sager reminded her that we would never be alone, that she would always be in our hearts and minds, and every decision we make for the rest of our lives would be driven by the positive influence she had on us. I remember the person who was honest and outspoken and sometimes said things that you didn't want to hear. I remember her passion for clothes and shoes and QVC. I remember all the good things we shared. Successful professional careers, watching Daniel grow into a fine young man, the birth of our granddaughter Mary Lynn, enjoying the close relationships with our families and the many friends we made along the way. And most of all, I remember how kind and passionate she was. She was the love of my life, my rock, my guide, and in many ways, my conscience. She left us much too soon. But she's not suffering anymore, and she's in peace. And you will always be with me, and I will always love you. Thank you.
Karen.
Hi, good morning. I'm Karen. As many of you know, I'm Lori's sister, and I'm speaking on behalf of our other sister, Sue, and our families. And I think we'll all share in the sentiment that Lori will be sorely missed. She was warm, she was fuzzy, but at the same time, she was tough as nails. I've never witnessed anyone with the grace and courage she displayed during her illness. She was optimistic to the end. Lori was a woman of charm and distinction. She spoke her mind, and as David said, there was never any doubt regarding her opinions. She told it like it was. You always knew where she stood, even if you didn't want to hear it, and many times I did not want to hear it. She met her Prince Charming in David, and Daniel was the other love in her life. They made her complete. In the large auditorium at Ohio University, no one cheered louder at Daniel's graduation than Lori. David and Lori were each other's cheerleaders, living together with love and respect. David attended all of Lori's doctor's appointments and was her partner to the end. Family was most important to Lori. She made a difficult trip to North Carolina in April to be with our extended family for Passover. She was so happy to be with her cousins, and many of them are, I think, looking in now on the webcast. We celebrated with Aunt Debbie there, and we celebrated with our Uncle Aaron on the occasion of his 85th birthday. She flourished, surrounded by the people who love her. Linda, David's sister, and Bob meant a lot to Lori. They shared restaurant dinners, Sunday lox and bagels, and the love of family, and they were very supportive of Lori with love and wisdom. And who can forget Lori and David's granddaughter, Mary Lynn? Lori doted on her. The simple mention of Mary Lynn's name caused a huge grin on Lori's face. And what a gift Mark and Vanessa gave to Lori, David, and Daniel. The only thing Lori did not care for was Jungle Bob. He brought his snakes to Mary Lynn's 3rd birthday party, and Lori was out the door faster than you'd ever see anyone run. Lori loved clothes and jewelry, as David said. Her frequent dialing numbers on her cell phone were her family, some of her friends, but I think number 1 was QVC. Everyone recognized the packages at the front door, and she knew the UPS driver by name. Lori was my fashion guru. She honed my style. She loved sports. As David said, she was a die-hard fan of the Indians and the Cavs. She loved football too, but she was eternally frustrated with the Browns. She not so secretly was a New York Giants fan too, but she didn't want to talk about it too much in Cleveland. Growing up, I fondly remember Sunday afternoons. We lived in New Haven. Our parents would take us to Yale Bowl to watch Yale football team play, and we had just a great old time there. You may not know this, but Lori was a competitive athlete in high school. She was an amazing volleyball player. She was not afraid to slam you with a hard serve, but some of her best skills were her trash talking to her opponents. She had quite the mouth on her when she wanted to. Lori loved Florida. She loved the warm weather. It was good for her mind and her body. She loved Nick's Pizza in Boca Raton, which was real New Haven pizza where you can't get everywhere. While we'll miss Lori, her presence is with us every day. We are who we are in part because of her love, wisdom, and guidance.
Will you all please rise? אל מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים חומצי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה עם קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזכירים את נשמת חנה פרל בת יעקב לום וטבע רבקה שהלכה לעולמה בעל הרחמים יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה אדוני הוא נחלתה ותנוח בשלום על משכבה ונאמר Amen. O God, full of compassion, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant rest now in your sheltering presence to our beloved Lori. She has entered eternity. God of mercy, let her find refuge in the shadow of your wings. Let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God, you are her inheritance, and she is yours. May she rest in peace.